And they're great kids, and they've really grown up to be just incredible, incredible individuals. Sydney graduated from Boston University with a sociology degree, and Justin graduated Florida State with a business degree. And now they're all living in Atlanta, Georgia, because that's where their half-brother is. And so they ended up there, and they're doing really incredibly well. But what's interesting to me is that all this time, everything was going on. I remember one time when I went into Nicole's bathroom, and I was looking at her drawers. I don't know, we were getting ready, putting on makeup, or doing something that girls do. We were just talking. And all of a sudden, I see this picture. I pull it out of her drawer, and it's a Polaroid picture. And I said, oh my God. And it was this black eye that they had painted, well, she had claimed, that they painted on her while he was doing his movie. And she goes, oh yeah. She goes, isn't that incredible? And I said, oh my God, that is amazing. It looks so real. And I took the picture and I threw it right back in the drawer. Still, nothing was said. My sister never spoke about it, never said anything again, and always made excuses. My sister lived a life, to me now looking back, because she was murdered on June 12, 1994, and the reason that we know about all of this that's going on is because she left her notes and diaries. And in those notes and diaries, she wrote about all of this stuff that was going on in her life. All the turmoil, all the abuse, all the infidelity, all the everything. But yet she still stayed married. She still stayed with this person. Because also in those diaries it says, if you ever leave me, I'm going to kill your family. This is what they do. They manipulate. They manipulate situations. My sister was only 18 years old when she met the man of her dreams. And you know, I look back and I think, wow, you know, for somebody who wanted to have this girl exactly the way he wanted to, and exactly the way he supposedly wanted to make her and, you know, bake her, for a lack of better words. I mean, I just can't even imagine. And this person was in our lives for 17 years. And doing something like this is, you just never even imagine something like this happening. But what it taught me is, my mother and I, we went to Human Options, which is a shelter in Laguna Beach. And we went there and we took these diaries and we said, okay, what does this mean? Because I was the first one to say, no, Nicole's not a battered woman. I did not think she was a battered woman. There was no way, because Nicole would have come to me and she would have talked to me. There was no way that this was a dirty little secret that everybody's talking about. This is something, because we were like this, we were always doing things together, that she would have talked to me about. Well, in my education, they give me the fact sheets, they give me the books to read. In my education, I learned that there is a lot of shame when it comes to domestic violence. There's 3 things that victims of domestic violence have in common: hope, shame, and fear. The hope that things are going to get better, like they were at the beginning of their relationship. They're always hoping. The shame of not wanting anybody to know, not your best friend, not a family member, nobody. And then the fear of the unknown, the fear of where am I going to go, what am I going to do? And especially if they have children. But what I did learn is that I learned that even the verbal, the put-downs, that you're stupid, if you hear those things over and over again, watch out. Because nobody has the right to talk to you like that. I learned that there was a cycle of domestic violence. It's a power and control of one human being over another. The verbal, the emotional, the psychological abuse, the chipping away at somebody's self-esteem was all a part of domestic violence. You're stupid, you're ugly, you're fat, nobody's going to want you, I'm the only one that's going to put up with you. That's all a part of domestic violence, this cycle that escalates into the physical violence. The hitting, the kicking, the pushing, throwing up against walls. And then there's the honeymoon phase of the, oh baby, I'm so sorry, it's never going to happen again. The gifts, the flowers, the excuses. Well, I testified to an event an incident of abuse. I testified, but I didn't know it was abuse. I still didn't know. My sister, and actually it was my fault. It was because of me that everything kind of blew up, because I told him, I said, you know, you really take my sister for granted. You just take such advantage of her. You do so much. She does so much for you. She does everything. And oh my God, all hell broke loose. He started ranting and raving, and pictures. The foyer, they have a second story filled with pictures. They came crashing down into the foyer. Clothes started coming out of her closet, throwing down. Get the hell out of my house. And I was like, oh my God. He grabbed my sister by the neck. He had her this far off the ground, up against the wall. And I was sitting there screaming, let her go. What are you doing? He threw her out. Nicole landed on her elbows and on her rear end, and she was all bloody. He threw me out, and he threw a friend of ours out as well. We ended up going to a hotel, and that night, she says, I'm never going back. I'm never going back. She goes, I hate him. I hate him. Words sound familiar? Next morning, she goes, Denise, I gotta go home. I gotta go pick up some clothes. I said, okay. I said, I'll go with you. And she says, no, don't worry about it. She goes, he won't be home. So okay. She went, an hour goes by, 2 hours go by, 3 hours. I'm like, Nick, I call her, Nick, what is going on? She says, oh, it's okay, everything is fine. He just flipped out a little bit, we had too much to drink. And I said, what? I said, Nicole, I said, come on. She says, don't worry about it. She goes, everything is fine, he's cooled off, everything was okay. It's okay. Well, I thought it was an isolated incident. I knew he had a temper. I didn't see him hit her when I first met him. I knew he was loud. So I didn't know. I thought it was an isolated incident. I didn't know anything about the cycle of violence that I learned later. And you have to remember, 18 years ago, law enforcement was told to walk around the corner, walk around the block, told the perpetrators, walk around the block, cool off. They couldn't do anything either. Domestic violence was this dirty little secret that was constantly swept under the carpet that nobody wanted to talk about. Well, when you're raised in a family that never even yells at each other, never heard my mom and dad scream or yell at each other. My dad never raised his voice. Nothing like that ever happened. So you never, ever think that something like this can happen to you or to your family. But you know it can. And it did to our family in the most horrific way. And I continue speaking about domestic violence and continue talking about different programs that are around the country that you can implement here in Madison, Wisconsin, in your own communities. Things you don't need legislation for. Things you probably already do. Like the call to protect. Technology changes all the time. Put a bin in your lobby or in your office. Collect old, used, broken cell phones. Your kids probably want the newest technology anyway. Collect those. And you can do a phone raising. They do a phone raising, a sharing through the CTI Wireless Foundation in Washington, D.C. So you can raise monies for DAIS as well. Do you probably do that here? Yeah. I mean, it's a great program. And for those of you who don't do it, collect those phones. It's a great thing. You know, the neighborhood watch programs. Those are great. You don't need legislation to implement them. My community is a neighborhood watch community, and the women that started this program were up in Northern California, and they had heard about this, and they started talking and talking and talking, and they said, hey, went to the police officers, and they said, is domestic violence a part of our program? And they said, no, it's bicycle safety, vandalism, things like that. And they started talking and talking and talking and talking, and we're not going to stop talking until domestic violence is part of that neighborhood watch program. So now when, you know, the yelling and screaming starts in the neighborhood, 911 is called. Not just from one person, for 10 people that used to look the other way. Don't look the other way. Don't turn your back. Because you could be saving someone's life. And that's what you want to do. You want to be able to save somebody's life. Domestic violence. There's statistics on domestic violence that I learned long ago. And what's really interesting is those statistics haven't changed much. You know, they say 73% of domestic violence incidences go unreported. 73%, I mean, come on. We need to be able to bring the awareness to those who are in need. Awareness is a huge key to getting the issue resolved. I mean, you know, you hear people talking about working themselves out of a job. Well, I'd like to work myself out of a job. I don't want to see all of you people here because we need it. But unfortunately, we do. And you know what? It's like that TV commercial. You tell two friends, they tell two friends, they tell two friends, they tell two friends. And that's what we have to do. Next year, there's going to be double in here. We got to squeeze you in like sardines next year, okay? Because really, seriously, I mean, I know that a lot of you already know what I'm talking about. They know about domestic violence, otherwise you wouldn't be here. Now grab those people that don't know anything about domestic violence. They go, or they're the naysayers, oh, it doesn't exist, it doesn't happen. You know, I live in Laguna Beach. Newport Beach is 20 minutes away from me. An advertising agency did a national campaign for domestic violence. The people in the community said, we don't have domestic violence here. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, the advertising agency knows you do. The law enforcement knows you do, but you don't believe you do. You know, so there are those people out there that still don't believe it, so we have to talk about it all the time. Domestic violence needs to be something that is talked, discussed. You know, there's programs like the Call to Protect, like the Neighborhood Watch program. There's something else that is geared towards teens that I love, and it's out of Florida, and a man by the name of Stan Cottle started it. And it's geared towards teenagers, 13 through 19. And it's a peer-to-peer. It's using technology and the way that people work nowadays, you know, with the technology, the way the teens work. And they do a lot of video production. He's got a production company. And I'll tell you, I really want to talk to you, Shannon, about this program because I think it's something that could be implemented so easy. They've implemented it in the Boys and Girls Clubs in Florida, and they have 200+ percentage increase in teens off the streets going into these programs. I mean, which is huge. You know, we're keeping all these teenagers off the street, and they're just doing some incredible things around the country. And, you know, I don't know what my role is, but I sure do want to be able to help you so that you can all, you know, benefit from these other programs and these other things that are just so incredible that are around the country. You know, domestic violence, if it wouldn't have been for my sister, I probably still wouldn't be speaking about it, and I still wouldn't have known anything about it. But my mission now is to save lives. My mission now is so that a tragedy like ours does not happen in your family. The Violence Against Women Act, you know, that 1995, our now Vice President brought me to Washington, D.C. He was a senator at the time. He said, Denise, we need help. And this was right after Nicole was murdered. He says, it's stalled in Senate appropriations. Well, it was stalled because people thought that it only happened to the poor and to the homeless. They didn't think that an affluent, middle-class person could even be affected by domestic violence. And this was 18 years ago. So much has changed. So many wonderful, positive things have happened. And there's so many incredible people that talk about domestic violence all the time. You know, when we were little, we used to run from house to house. And there was probably about 8 or 10 little girls. And, you know, the garage doors were open. Run from house to house. Violence didn't seem as prevalent back then. You know, it just seems like everywhere you turn, everywhere you look, a child is being abducted, somebody is being raped. I mean, there's just so much tragedy, so many things that are going on. But you know what? In all of this, speaking about it, we can educate just one more person. We can save one more life. That's what this is all about, saving lives. A friend of mine wrote about facing overwhelming obstacles and incredible odds. He said, when our time on earth is through, I think that if there is a heaven or a hell, we will be asked to pay someday. Not just for what we did, but for what we did not do. So please, I pledge to continue my work to educate, to prevent, to make people aware of this monster called domestic violence. And I hope you take that pledge too, and you go out there today, tomorrow, and continue spreading the word, and let people know that DAIS is here.